All right, so chapter 25.
The worst form of communication.
Whoops.
Chapter 25, finishing strong. The worst form of communication is assumption, followed closely by email. Sarah came bouncing into my office. She was so excited. She was at 80% in only 3 months of support raising. I congratulated her. I even used her as an example in a training session. Then something strange happened. A few months later, I received a printout from our financial supervisor. I scrolled down to the monthly accounts of all our staff. Sarah received only $750 that month, a far cry from the 80% she said she was at. I called her into my office to chat. Turns out she had gotten a number of yeses in her appointments, but very few of her new supporters actually began their giving. Unfortunately, Sarah's story will be your story if you think it's too pushy to ask your new donor to get started with their first gift right there in the appointment.
Oh, yes.
Don't think it's weird to come by their office or home a second time to pick up the first check or get them set up to give online. Otherwise, how do you go about getting them started giving? Praying, waiting, hoping they will send in the gift? And if they don't start after 1, 2, 3 months, what then? Here's the voicemail that an exasperated Sarah left for the supporter who had not yet begun. I'm sorry to be bugging you, but you said you would come on my team. Why haven't you started giving yet? Awkward. She resorted to email instead. No response. Remember, if we find ourselves frustrated at someone because they haven't started their giving yet, don't get angry at them. 9 times out of 10, it is not their fault. It is ours. We were the ones who were not clear enough at the end of each appointment or phone call as to what the specific next steps, including timelines, are for them to begin giving. Making the call. For those who need more time to give you their decision, give a certain day and time you will definitely call back. They may not be accustomed to Christian workers working hard, getting specific, following through with their commitments. Why don't you surprise them and break the stereotype in their mind? At the exact day and time you said you would call back, call back. Whether you feel led to or not, follow through faithfully. Repeat the day and exact time you will be calling back, helping them understand it is a phone appointment and you will be calling to get their decision. That will help them not to take your ask, your call, or their response lightly. Brad, a new staff person who just reached 100% in 4 months, shared this observation. I don't want to wait too long to call back for a decision. The more time I give them, the less sense of urgency they will have, and it becomes harder to get them back on the phone. So call back the exact day and time you said you would. I agree. The chances they commit to your team start nosediving if you wait beyond 2 to 3 days to call back, or if you don't follow through and call when you said you would. View it as a phone appointment you have set up with this person. If their voicemail clicks on at the agreed upon time, keep calling back that day until you talk with them. Why? Because you have both mutually committed to a phone appointment on that day and time, and you always fulfill your commitments. Perseverance to reconnect. More times than not, it seems we get answering machines and people's voicemails. This is frustrating. I always continue to call until I reach them to find out their decision. Why? Because I promised I would. It may take 2, 4, 6, 8 calls to get hold of them. That's okay. I don't let insecurities take over my mind that they are avoiding me or screening my calls. That's why I don't mind calling back at different times of the day or night at any number I might have for them. If I can't get hold of them via phone, I don't mind stopping back by their office, home, or catching them at church if appropriate. Why? Because I promised I would. I always keep my promises.
Amen.
Leaving messages. I do leave messages at times. I never ask them to call me back. I always assume the best as to why they may not have been able to be available to take my call. I must take responsibility to call them back again every time. There have been a couple of times over the years when, after months of calling back, I finally just said, Mr. Smith, I'm not sure why we have not been able to connect on the phone. I promised I would call you back and wanted to be faithful. I would be honored to have you on our team. If you were able to call back and give me an indication of what you would like to do, I would appreciate it. Thanks so much. Don't be surprised if you don't hear back, though. That's okay. You did all you could do.
Amen.
Script of the call. When I get them on the phone, here is what I say. Mr. Smith, this is Steve Shadrach. How are you doing today? I sure enjoyed the time with you on Thursday. Thanks again for spending it with me. As you remember, I promised I would call back this morning to see if you had further questions about our ministry and to find out how God has led you regarding investing in us and our ministry. Have you been able to make a decision yet? Purpose of the follow-up appointment. If a person desires to come on your team, the hard part begins, actually getting them started. You can attempt to do this over the phone, but doing it in person is so much more effective. There are 3 main reasons to stop back by. Secure first gift. When I call back and get a yes, I say, "That is great, Mr. Smith. Thank you so much. Coming on our team for $100 a month will make a huge difference. Praise God. Mr. Smith, I'm wondering if you would be open to go ahead and get started this month so I could count your gift toward reaching my goal. I would really appreciate it. Could I come by your office or home for just 5 to 10 minutes to show you what the giving options are? You can pick the one that works best for you. While there, I can show you how the receipting process works. When would be a good time in the next 2 to 3 days I could slip by for a few moments? How about Thursday mid-morning or Friday afternoon? Would one of those work for you? It will be brief. Show them receipting process. This can be a second reason to drop by. Take a hard copy or email version of a receipt by to explain it and answer any questions. Asking for referrals. If you are going to ask for referrals, the end of this follow-up visit is the best time to do so. Referral strategy. Utilizing this approach may prepare you to become a master networker. In Nehemiah 2, the king's cupbearer wasn't exactly sure how much Artaxerxes wanted to be of help, but he was going to find out. Shrewdly, Nehemiah implemented the domino effect in that he first approached and secured the commitment of the most influential person, the king. He then asked Artaxerxes for endorsements and referrals. Nehemiah took those referral letters and gave them to the second most influential, the governors in the provinces. After getting yeses from first the king and the governors, it was almost a sure thing the third most influential, the manager of the lumber company, would give him all he asked. Here's how Olga, a 24-year-old Ukrainian ministry staffer, used referrals. She came to America needing to raise $2,700 in new monthly support to cover her budget, as well as 2 other staff. She knew no one here and had only a 21-day visa. A fellow U.S. staffer gave her 40 of his referrals to provide a starting point. Olga was so motivated she raised the entire $2,700 in new monthly support using only referrals and referrals of referrals. True to her word, as she was exiting the U.S., she gave that staff guy 40 new referrals. Let's talk about referrals. Will you need to ask for referrals? For some support raisers, asking for referrals is unnecessary because they have hundreds of people from different stages of life who they can invite on their team. Some will have to pursue a strategy of asking for referrals to get to 100%. Maybe they met with all the high, medium, and low priority contacts and are still not at full funding. Asking for referrals becomes this person's only option. Some ministries feel so strongly about referrals, they ask all their staff to ask for referrals every time. Mike Heron, a regional director for campus outreach, trains his staff to first ask the golden question in their appointments, seeking to secure a monthly commitment. But then at the end of each meeting, he has them ask the platinum question, the one seeking to secure a batch of referrals. The right timing in asking. If you ask for referrals, when you do the ask makes all the difference. When I go into an appointment, I am normally focused on asking them to become monthly team members. I am committed to present one request at a time and get one decision at a time. Don't say, "Yes, I'd love for you to come on my monthly team and possibly give me names of people to contact too." No, that muddies the water. They will usually choose the least painful option if you give them multiple choices. The time to ask for referrals is after they have made their final giving decision, after they have decided on an amount. Then and only then do you ask about one final way they can be of help, to brainstorm for referrals. The right attitude. The lazy let it happen. The wise make it happen. Rick Warren, pastor and author. You can really mess up when asking for referrals if you do it the wrong way or with the wrong person. Here are some tips. Expand your thinking. Before you start contacting people you don't know, have you been diligent to contact every person you do know? Have you really worked hard at name-storming every person you've ever known or even met and put them down on your list? You will need a sense of urgency to have a successful referral strategy. Like Olga, are you willing to go anywhere and talk to anyone about your ministry and coming on your support team? Some are too proud or too lazy to do whatever it takes to get their ministry assignment. Asking for referrals is the key to expanding your list and multiplying contacts exponentially. Be positive and thankful. Expect to get a good response when asking for referrals. Believe in God and that you and your ministry are worth a significant investment. Be thankful to the Lord and to each person who trusts you enough to give referrals to you. Treat each one with great care. If you sense a strong negative reaction when you mention referrals, use wisdom and sensitivity and be willing to back away. The right approach. Don't just wing it when asking for referrals. Craft a script and role play. Get feedback and practice again. Make your first 10 appointments with people who will be favorable toward your request for referrals after they have made their giving decisions. Whether you ask the person in the initial appointment or whether you ask them in the shorter follow-up visit, here is what I say. Mr. Smith, before I go, there may be one more very important way you can help me. I want to quickly get to full support and my ministry assignment, but I'm limited in the number of people I know personally in this area. Would you take a moment to think about all the people you and your family know? If you're open to it, I'd like to write down a few names of people you think might share our mutual concern for the lost. I would love to have the opportunity to sit down and share the ministry with them as I have with you. Help them think of names. If your contact doesn't give you names, it may be they're not stonewalling you. They just need their memory jogged. If possible, do a little advance homework. If they are part of a church, small group, or club, you might mention them one at a time to see if names come to their mind. For example, if they are an attorney in town, you might bring a list of other attorneys in the city to let them peruse the names. This will help you uncover others in their profession they think might be open to meeting with you. If they give you names, ask if they have phone numbers and addresses available. Enlist the person to advocate for you. You never know how much the individual or couple you meet is willing to do for you until you ask. As a follow-up request, Nehemiah gave the king specifics of what to include in his reference letters. Then Nehemiah held on to those letters, and he was the one who decided when and how they should be sent. If a person you meet with is willing to give you names, use discernment as to the most effective way to contact them. Craft an email or letter for your advocate to individually send out to their friends. They will obviously want to look at it, tweak it, and approve it. At the right time, when you are ready to follow up on those referrals, ask your advocate to send out those emails or letters to their contacts. Coordinate the timing so you can begin the follow-up calling a few days later to initiate appointments. Triangles of trust. Make a list of some of your close friends and associates. After you have met with and secured giving commitments from these individuals, make a follow-up request. Ask, who do you know well enough that they would meet with me simply because you asked them to? Those names and appointments will probably be good ones, because a triangle of trust is created whereby your friend's credibility and that relationship is now extended to you. If you have divided your contacts into high, medium, and low priority, a referral from your high category will normally be a better referral than one from your medium category. A medium will be more favorable than a low. Prioritize them accordingly. Making asks from a distance. What if someone lives so far away you can't meet with them face to face? Don't be the guy who reasons, I live all the way over here in Dallas and it's a whole hour of rush hour traffic to Fort Worth. I'm just going to call or email him instead. There may be an occasional isolated contact with limited resources that it may not be good stewardship of your time and money to go see. If so, send a personal letter or email greeting them and sharing about your life and ministry. Give them details of your support goal and desire to invite them onto your monthly team for a certain amount or range. Include a simple brochure explaining your work. Give them a certain day you will contact them. Once they get your information, call and catch up. Be sure they got the letter or email. Ask if they have questions. See if they have been able to pray and to make a decision about joining your team. If yes, make sure you're very specific about the exact next steps to get them started. Ask if they can go ahead and get started that month. Inform them of the various giving options. I say something like, today is the 15th and you mentioned you could get started this month. That's great. I'm putting a self-addressed stamped envelope in the mail tomorrow. If you can fill out your check or other option and put it back in the mail by the 25th, it should get to me by the 1st. If I haven't received it by the 10th, something happened to it in the mail. I will call you. Thanks so much. No 9-to-5 schedule. You don't clock in and clock out during this season of support raising. There may be days you start out meeting someone at 6 a.m. and don't get home that evening until 11 p.m., having had a full day of appointments. It can be a crazy schedule that has to be very flexible. Self-discipline during the support raising time is essential. Spare moments between meetings could be used for letter writing, setting up appointments, thank you or reminder texts, prayers, phone calls, even reading or exercise. Don't get idle for any reason. It can be a killer. Your donors will not sense that you are a man or woman on a mission. Don't neglect to insert periodic days of Sabbath rest during your support-raising journey. Time to get alone with God, refocus, and refresh will be essential. Chapter 26.
Well, what do y'all think about that one?
He's making it very clear that this is not an easy road.
The referral thing is good, even if they say yes, it's good to get referrals from them, but especially if they say no, then what do you know anybody that might sponsor or join this?
Well, I would say, especially if they say yes, I mean, if they're the kind of person who's really,
Right,
focused on the kingdom and willing to invest, they might know others, like you said, whether they're people they go to church with or in a small group with or whatever, but, we tend to hang out with people that are somewhat similar to us. So someone who's really on fire for Jesus might know some other fiery Jesus people,
Yes, sir.
so.
I can go this way on Saturday, I'm gonna see what it was going on, James. Saturday at 4, can you be available?
Yes.
Okay, we have to walk to New Genesis wherever we are.
Okay.
I just make sure I got your number and stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
But we can look forward to this Saturday at 4.
Yeah, and you give me a reminder Friday night.
Okay.
So yeah, I think a huge part of this is, making sure that we do everything that we need to do to help them, start their support raising. So at this point, they've hopefully said yes, and now we're taking responsibility to help them get signed up.
The easiest way is online, correct?
Yes, but it doesn't necessarily have to be what's easiest for us. It's really about what's comfortable for them.
Yeah.
I just put in an order for 2,000 self-addressed envelopes. So if there's someone who prefers to give through the mail, the old-fashioned way, we're going to have plenty of envelopes for that. So we also are going to do our response cards. So I think when you go on your appointments, you'll want to have a batch of those. You want to at least have a response card and a return envelope. And I would even say, especially if it's you're giving it to them, in person, specifically for people who are committing to support you, and that's the way they prefer to do it. I would even recommend that you buy some stamps, stamp the envelopes for them. And so it's just us, making it as easy and as possible to help them, support to us. So, these envelopes cost us some money, obviously some stamps that cost a little bit of money, but it's going to be an investment that's going to be worth it, because, we're going to generate a lot more support than we will spend with some of those kinds of materials. So
I certainly had the opportunity to follow up about a person, and I'm gonna do this really good. I'm not gonna name them.
Yep.
But asked him, did you have any trouble negotiating the website? No, it was really very easy and well set up. But yeah, they appreciated me checking with them.
mm-hmm.
So that's likely to bring a favorable response every month.
So I would encourage you to, so is this someone who you had talked about previously about
Yes.
supporting you?
And, yeah,
So ideally, you would have that conversation on the front end as opposed to after the fact.
I did, and then I followed up and how did it go?
Okay.
Like I said, they said, yeah, it was fairly simple.
Okay,
We did see your name and we made sure that you did get credit for that.
okay.
It was good. I just wanted to be 100% sure and know that will show at the end of the month. So
Sure.
it was good. They were actually grateful. I was pleasantly surprised. It didn't sound like they felt like it was being pushy. So
Must be nice having the Lord's favor. No, I'm just kidding. Good job, James Bradley.
yeah. It's very cool.
Jared, can I step out to get the pizza that me and Brenda ordered? It's right across the street.
Sure.
I'll hurry.
You don't have to share too much of it with me.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
I share.
Unfortunately, I already ate my lunch and brushed my teeth, so I don't know if I'll even have this at this point.
Sorry.
So looking at more of the specifics here. Any questions about this chapter?
It just jumped out the last line in this chapter. Yeah, it's good to work hard and work focused, intentional, but there it is. And we go like to insert periodic days of Sabbath rest during this flourishing journey. Time to get along with God, be focused and refresh will be essential. I'm grateful for that reminder.
So let me
There
give
was
you.
a word I didn't understand after you did that. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, you're fine.
Okay, don't neglect to insert periodic days of Sabbath rest during your support raising journey. Time to get alone with God, refocus and refresh will be essential. That's a good reminder. Intrinsically, we know that, but it's
Mhm.
good. Not to be able with, get away with the striving.
With what?
Striving.
Um,
Working on your own strength, basically.
So there's one question you guys should be asking me at least. So I'll give you a minute to find it. So the whole general point of this is taking responsibility to help our supporters with the logistics of their giving process. So there's one of the things that this chapter recommends that we should be doing. And I'm guessing neither of you or anyone watching on YouTube knows this bit of information that it's recommending you give. So I don't know why all the people watching online aren't responding, but anybody in the classroom have any ideas?
Something to do with the advocate.
With the who and the what?
It has something to do with the advocature listing.
Like what?
Who that advocate should be, or what kind of person that advocate should be.
Are you looking at the enlist the person to advocate for you, that section?
Yes.
Okay. That's really good. If you can get someone to advocate for you, I would definitely encourage that. Is there a specific question you had about that or?
Well, it's got to be somebody who's already committed. Okay, well, I overthink it there. All right.
That's okay. I'm just fishing to see what I can get out of you guys. Brenda, you getting anything?
No,
All right, fine. I'll tell you. You ready?
Right.
yeah.
It's in the section purpose of the follow-up appointment. I'll give you, let's drag this guessing game out a little bit. So I gave you a hint. So now what do you think? purpose of the follow-up appointment. What questions do you have about that section?
Oh, follow-up appointment should be in person.
That's not a question.
Well, that's a statement.
What question do you have about accomplishing these three things that it recommends that you do?
Well, they're not saying to do the presentation.
Okay, this is secure first gift, show receipt process.
You can attempt to do this over the phone, but doing it.
Oh, what is
So-
the receiving
Oh.
process?
What is the receiving process? That's the question I'm looking for.
Yes.
What is the receiving process?
What is it?
I'm glad you asked. So if they give online, they'll automatically get a receipt by email,
Mhm.
as well as an end of the year giving statement.
Okay.
So they'll get an email acknowledging each individual gift, and they'll also get an end of the year statement. If it's only if they request a receipt in the mail that we will be doing those. So that's a little bit more time consuming on, the part of our volunteer bookkeeper.
No, but that's
So,
hard. Oh, my goodness.
So that's something that for you guys to be aware of, that if they give online, they'll automatically get an email receipt. If they, in any case, they're going to get an end of the year statement. But if they want individual receipts mailed to them, which means either they prefer to also have it, even if they're getting one in email, or let's say they give through the mail, they give by check or something else.
Well, like
If-
my guy would probably want it because he can give it to Ball and then Ball will match it.
Okay, so, but what I'm saying is he'll automatically get an emailed receipt if he gives online. But
Oh,
if they want a receipt, individual receipts for each gift, if they're giving by check or if they want it by mail, in any case, that's something that they would need to request.
Would you encourage me at this time that if I know my donors are all, it happens to be that all my donors are going, so far that was here, are going online, would you encourage me to let them know to expect that now or later?
I would not bring it up. And honestly, I wouldn't invite them to ask us for a mailed receipt, because that's just going to add more work. So what I'm telling you is for your information, in case your donors are asking about it, so you can be prepared to answer that question.
Or he can actually use the receipt he gets from.
Mike?
Yeah, so if they ask you about the receipt, tell them if they give online, they'll automatically get an emailed receipt. If they request a receipt to be mailed to them, then pass that request on to me. But I wouldn't, I do want you to be informed about this, but I don't necessarily want you to hit up all your supporters and say, hey, would you like us to mail your receipt? Because that's kind of like inviting
Maybe I didn't
a lot of
pose my
extra work.
question. Maybe I didn't pose my question.
So my answer to your question is, if they haven't asked you about the receipt,
Don't
then,
say nothing.
Maybe
yeah,
we'll-
then we're good.
Okay,
Yep.
we're good.
Because hopefully they got the email response, or they just don't need an individual receipt, because honestly, most people should be good with just the end of the year giving statement.
Okay, yeah. Yeah,
So we don't
it's like
want to,
ODM.
yeah, and they'll definitely get that no matter what.
Okay, we're good.
But we will, if they do want a mailed receipt for each individual gift,
Okay, good, good.
we are willing to do that, but we don't want to do that for everybody, because
Yeah.
that's a lot of work.
Okay, very good. Thank you, sir.
You want, yeah.
Sorry.
So any other questions about this so far?
Chapter 26. You need the church. Lance came to the Lord in college. He began sharing his faith, making disciples, and gaining a heart for the world. Upon graduation, he got married, applied to a mission agency, and began raising his support. In addition to asking his family and friends to join his team, he also approached the church he was raised in. This was an old-fashioned church with a world map in the foyer. On it were placed the pictures of the 100 missionaries they were supporting, each for $200 a month. They were so proud of the number of workers who had come out from their body. They were also proud of the amount they were giving to each. Then, in walks Lance. He went to the missions committee meeting held every Sunday afternoon. It was full of older men wanting to quickly wrap up the meeting so they could get to their pro football game watching. They were all supportive of Lance and obviously going to get behind the young man who grew up there. Lance went through his presentation, but noticed the men were yawning and anxious for him to finish up. He moved rapidly to his ask by saying, "I'm required to raise $4,600 of monthly support to get me to China. I want to ask you as my home church to come on my team for $2,300 a month, 50% of my total budget." The moment $2,300 a month came out of Lance's mouth, each man's head instantly jerked up. Their eyes bulged open. They started stammering and stuttering all at once. Well, yes, Lance, we want to support you, but you know that all anyone ever receives is $200 a month. That's what we always give. Finally, Lance was able to quiet them down and responded, "I understand, but will you at least pray about it?" Oops. That incited a whole new chorus of chaotic jabbering. These old guys attempting to blunt Lance's request with a bundle of reasons why it was an impossibility. At last, Lance exited the meeting. A friend on the committee later told him, "Wow, did we have a missions committee meeting when you left? You rearranged the circuits of the 'we've always done it this way' crowd." When Lance came back the following Sunday to get their decision, the men unanimously proclaimed, "Let's do it. 50% of your budget. We'll provide $2,300 a month." Right now, you may be thinking your church would never, ever be willing or able to support you at that level. Well, if Lance's stuck-in-a-rut church was willing to reconsider their ancient policies, maybe yours will too. Many times we have not because we ask not. I challenge you to ask your home church for 20 to 50% of your total budget. What's the worst they could say? "I'm sorry, we can't do 20 to 50%, but would 15% help?" Absolutely. They will never forget the boldness you demonstrated. They will respect you for asking what no one else has ever dared to ask them for. They will be open to future increases to your team, surmising you must really believe you and your ministry are a strategic investment. God may very well surprise you if you are willing to lay it all on the line by asking big. A disclaimer. Having one church take such a huge portion of your support has potential negatives. If the pastor or finances of the church change, or they decide to attach unreasonable demands to their support, it can put your team in jeopardy. So use discernment and keep working on increasing the number of individuals who are giving monthly.
Amen.
How not to raise support from churches. Going to people you do know will almost always bear more fruit than approaching churches you don't know. The Apostle Paul had local congregations investing in his work. Why shouldn't we? There's a right and a wrong way to do so. I have observed all kinds of desperate things Christian workers do to get full funding. Some are unwilling to set up face-to-face appointments with individuals to ask for support. Instead, they decide to try the mass appeal approach with churches across the country. Missionaries spend tons of time and money preparing bulging packets filled with a cover letter, brochures, video, pledge card, and return envelope. They confidently mail them to hundreds of churches at a time, fully believing every pastor will eagerly open, read, and immediately respond with a large gift from their missions budget. Not a good approach. Some finally discover this older and more expensive form of spamming doesn't yield results and decide to take to the road instead. Believing they have the gift of public persuasion, they pile their family into a car and go from town to town, church to church, delivering impassioned speeches about their ministry. They hope the congregations will give them large love offerings. After a year or two, those offerings have barely covered the hotel, food, gas, and repair bills. Worst of all, they're no closer to having a solid monthly support team. What they're left with is a worn-out car and a worn-out family in the process. I understand why some denominations want their workers to travel like this to spread vision to their local churches, but the wear and tear on the missionaries can be substantial. How to raise support from churches. Work smarter, not harder. Let's develop a strategy for church partnerships, but don't go overboard. I know of one man who bragged to me about having 100 churches on his team. Problem was, they were all giving only $25 a month. Some even had strings attached to their $25. He was expected to fly back at his own expense to their missions conference. Another worker was required to send in extensive reports each year justifying the support he received. Still others are asked to plan and host short-term trips the church was sending to them. Besides, how could anyone stay connected and caring for that many congregations and their leadership? Impossible. We should have a few churches on our team, but we need to be more wise and strategic as to which churches we ask and how we invite them to partner with us. Here are some ideas. Start with your home church. The place to begin is with your home church. If you don't have one, get one, but choose wisely. Yes, select one who will embrace your ministry and support requests. By the way, where's the verse that says you can only have one home church? Along with the church in which you're currently involved, what about the church you grew up in? Why can't that also be your home church? And what about the one you attended while in college or the one you served in for 10 years before you moved to your current city? These congregations are going to most likely feel the strongest about partnering with you. Please let them join you. Share with the pastor. Begin here. You don't want your pastor to hear secondhand about you going into ministry or raising support from his church. It's far better that he hear it directly from you early on in the process. He may not be familiar with your organization or the concept of personal support raising. He may be one of the few people who ask to see your budget. Have it available. Ask him what the steps are for applying to the church for support. Seek to honor him by getting his advice and guidance. If you want to get his buy-in, you'd better let him weigh in. Listen to what he tells you. Try to follow it. Coming to him first and in a personal way may prompt him to give you some insider information on how to approach the missions committee for support.
Amen.
Ask him which people in the church he would recommend you approach. These are going to be good names. Being able to call someone and say, "The pastor recommended I talk to you," carries a lot of weight. Years ago, my pastor responded to this request by giving me only one name, a prominent businessman I didn't know personally. As I met with him, his skepticism turned to extreme generosity when he understood the pastor had given me his name. Bingo. Ask him personally to come on your team. This is going to be fun. Call up your pastor and request an appointment to share your ministry vision and financial goals. He is obligated to meet with you because you are one of his parishioners, right? As you lay out your ministry vision, ask him to come on your team. He'll be confused. You're asking to be supported by the church, right? He will inquire with a puzzled look. Yes, Pastor, you say. I certainly want to approach the missions committee to be supported by the church. Today, though, I am just talking to you. It would be an incredible honor and put such a deep strength into us if you and your family would personally come on our monthly support team. He won't know where to take the conversation. He's been approached 100 times by Christian workers requesting support from the church, but this is the very first time he has ever been asked personally like this. It's a win-win regardless of how he responds. If he says yes and comes onto your monthly team, think how much strength and credibility that will give you as you approach others. Even if he says he cannot, he will probably feel compelled to be an advocate for you, offering to give you names, speak to the church, and write a reference letter on your behalf. I can't tell you how many pastors I have talked to over the years who have been local church pastors for decades and have never once been asked to come on a workers' personal support team. What a tragedy. Start with the senior pastor, then call up the assistant pastor, and the next one in line. Meet with each of the staff. Word will get out. She's a-comin'. That's okay. Just do it anyway. Each of them deserves a once-in-a-lifetime experience to have this kind of appointment and opportunity to invest in a real Great Commission worker. It might just change the course of their lives. Speaking to groups. Exercise self-control when asked to speak or make appeals in group settings. No doubt you'll be invited to address Sunday school classes, worship services, home groups, and evening desserts. I'm not saying turn these down. Just use discernment as to which ones you accept and how you present yourself and ministry. Just because you're invited to share your support presentation with the wealthiest Sunday school class in the whole city, don't get too excited. Ellis Goldstein doesn't think asking in large groups is near as effective as one-on-one. He likes to share that often quoted principle: every man's challenge is no man's challenge. So when asked to speak to groups, apply this overriding principle in all your decision-making. Don't do anything in a group that would in any way hamper you getting individual appointments. Case in point, scenario 1, small group invite. This is a Sunday school class, home group, or dessert sponsored by friends. If you choose to accept, get there early and stay late, meeting and greeting, remembering names, and building rapport. When it comes time to make your presentation, don't take the whole hour and pour out your entire ministry vision. Just take 5 minutes to thank them, introduce yourself, the name of your ministry, and finish off with a key verse and a brief story of a transformed life who has been impacted through your ministry, all in 5 minutes. Then transition to, there is so much more about our ministry vision, organization, and financial goals I would love to share. I am committed to doing that on a more personal, individual basis. I know you're busy. It would be a tremendous honor for me to be able to squeeze into your schedule for a short 20 or 30 minutes sometime soon to go more in depth into the work the Lord has led us into. After this, you can follow up with one of 2 options. Pass out contact cards. If you don't mind, I'd like to pass out this little card to everyone. If you'd be willing to simply write your name and phone number down, I'll do my very best to get back with each of you and find out when a convenient time might be to get together. I would be grateful for the opportunity. Collecting those cards, you will get back about 15 from that group of 30. Out of those 15, you'll secure about 6 to 7 appointments. Out of those appointments, you'll gain around 2 to 3 monthly supporters and 2 to 3 special gifts. Those could turn into monthly or annual gifts in the future if you follow up correctly with them. Just contact everyone. I would like to do my best to get back with as many of you as possible to try to set up an appointment with you. If you don't mind, I will be in touch with you this next week or the following. Thanks again. You will need to coordinate with a friend in that class or the director to get all the names and numbers of the attendees that day. Then pray, plan, and start calling. The 20 hours you put into planning a big fundraising dessert could be used much more wisely and produce far superior amounts of faithful, ongoing support by simply having 20 one-hour appointments. There's no comparison. If your ministry does plan some kind of annual banquet, don't use it as a fundraiser as much to meet, greet, and get their contact information. Now, those 100 attendees don't just chip in their $100 to cover the meal. No, they are now going to each get an individual visit from a staff member, inviting them to come on to their support team for $100 a month. In other words, use any group gathering you organize as a means to an end, not an end itself. The end? Individual appointments, individual asks. Scenario 2. Church service invite. Make sure everything you do or say in a group setting helps, not hinders, getting individual appointments. Resist the temptation to accept the pastor's offer to use an upfront speaking opportunity before the congregation to unveil your ministry plans and goals. Take the 5-minute teaser route I previously described, then sit down. Or take the whole session, but use it to share a message from the Bible highlighting key passages revealing the heart of God for the lost. Likewise, you could use the whole class time at one of the small groups previously described to give a visionary message from the Word. If you elect to use the small or large group invite to go ahead and present your full ministry vision or make an appeal, it will automatically undermine your ability to secure individual appointments with the majority of the people present. If afterwards you do attempt to call and meet with them personally, they'll naturally ask, "Why do we need to meet? I heard the details of your work. What else could we possibly talk about?" Also, if you give the traditional announcement, "If anyone wants to know more about our ministry, we have a sign-up sheet at the back table," you will regret it. If only 4 people out of the 500 present sign your sheet, ethically, how can you approach the other 496? And if you do, they will think, "Why are you calling me? I didn't sign your sheet."
Amen.
Unique church challenges. As a former pastor, I still remember all the demands put on me by so many. Over the years, I've had the privilege of interacting with thousands of different pastors from almost every denomination. My respect for them is immense. I have observed that the pressures of keeping the church and building budgets fully funded can have an effect on how a pastor interprets certain passages. That constant financial stress can influence the attitudes and approaches they develop toward parachurch ministries and support raisers. Here are 3 challenges you may face when approaching churches. Denominational churches. Having been a pastor of a denominational church, I know the limitations that are placed on church leadership to only fund programs and people who are officially associated with them. I am haunted by the look of utter despair and even betrayal I have seen on the faces of zealous young missionaries who were going to their own home church for support, only to be turned away due to their calling to a non-denominational work. All you can do is go to the church leadership and make your case for support. If they are unable to provide funds from their budget, this may make them more willing to allow you to meet with individuals in the church.
Yeah.
Highly structured funding formulas. It's encouraging many churches are specifically thinking through how they want to more strategically disperse their giving dollars. However, God does not always fit into those well-intentioned categories and percentages. As you approach your church, you may try to do research in advance to understand the breakdowns and ministries they do and don't support. When you make your presentation, seek to highlight the aspects of your ministry that fit into the kinds of work the committee is committed to funding. High control leadership. Some pastors seem to think it is my church and my people and my budget. It can feel like he is building his own church rather than Christ's. I am sure they have good motives, but you may want to be prepared to present creative alternatives. For example, if they make you choose between accepting support from the church or approaching individual members, which should you choose? Always choose individuals, but I don't think you'll have to. Here's what I would say to that church leader. Ma'am, I must have my home church on my team. How can I possibly go to other churches or individuals and ask for support if my own church is not behind me? It cuts the slats right out from underneath me. But I have another dilemma. I have all these personal relationships in the church, and they're waiting for me to come to them and include them in my support team. They'll be angry if I don't. I understand the reasoning behind your policy if you don't want outsiders to come and use our church directory for solicitation. May I present a plan to you to see if it might be acceptable? Here is a list of the 32 couples in our church I am close to and that are expecting me to contact them. I promise not to approach any of our members for support outside of this list before I gain your permission first. Final tips. Create and present a customized version of levels of giving chart to present to churches in your time with the missions committee. Showing them how they might fit into your church anchor donor team on a monthly or annual basis will vividly show them what their part to play is. Find key advocates in various churches. You can scatter full-color ministry packets out to churches across the country, but you'll be sorely disappointed in the results. Instead, get your entire list of contacts out, pray and peruse over them, determine which of those individuals have some significant involvement and influence in their own local church. Write them a note asking them to advocate on your behalf to key decision makers in their congregation. Take their cues as to what the steps are for partnering with them to make a request to the church. Your odds of success just went up. Whether you realize it or not, you are 1 or 2 contacts away from hundreds of key churches across the nation. Don't base your entire support-raising strategy on going from church to church, but having several key congregations behind you can make a real difference. The Lord has always prepared a few churches to partner with you. Your job now is to discover them.
How about that?
That's awesome.
Okay, so is it paper, scissors, rock, whatever, so he decides we're going to Pastor Andy first?
I think somebody already did.
Huh?
I said, I think somebody already did.
Really?
Yep.
You. Oh. James!
No, not me.
No?
In fact, pray for me. I feel a little pullback in my spirit to do so with Pastor Andy. I'm not sure why.
About not going to him?
I feel pullback to not go to him.
Yeah, I mean, we probably shouldn't all go ask him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Paper, rock, scissors.
He's already pulling his thin hair out to
I don't know about that, but
communicating with Kim constantly, and she keeps telling him, we'll move when the check is in the.
I think one of the things that is
So he is supporting one
something
of
to
us?
discuss. I just pray about who you should ask. I think we need to be, so this is not just about him, but just in general. We have 10 of us all together. the 8 of you, including me, including Dale. So Tellus has 10 staff. We all go to the same church. And it's not a big church. So I would just encourage all of us to just be really prayerful about who we go to within the congregation. And I would say also, this is just me, if we're not in a position where we really need a lot of personal
They
finances, then maybe let people whose, you know, well-being is much more on the line, you know,
Well, yeah, because you know what, it's kind of.
pursue those
weird 'cause
opportunities.
When I was at Triad last week, Peg said, hey Brenda, aren't you in that discipleship class? Are you gonna be asking for support? And I'm like, I don't know why, you wanna support me? You know me, and she said, well, I was thinking about it. And I'm like,
Whoa.
There you go.
There you go.
yeah, I was like,
You didn't even have to work for that one.
okay, you
It's
know,
like,
yeah,
seems to
but
be a
then,
common
you
thread
know,
around the church.
she can't afford it, so I'm not gonna ask her, you know?
Maybe she's telling you she can.
Yeah, but she was saying that somebody else already asked, so.
Well, if she wants to give to more than one person, that's fine.
That's
But
her prerogative.
the fact that she approached you with that one, I would say, might as well follow up. Yeah, I would just urge us to be creative in how we could each one reach out to contacts outside of the immediate community to generate support. You know, that's my intention as I continue to look for new supporters is, you know, it's not going to be anyone in our immediate congregation. And I just feel like that's ideal for not just for me, you know, if people in our community are already giving to other people, then why should I, you know, spend time asking them instead of asking people who aren't being faced with the situation like he's saying. A lot of people out there don't support anyone. So why should we all go to the same, you know, 20 people and, you know, ask them to support multiple of us? So yeah, I would just encourage us, like I said, if you're one of our apprentices who is needing support for, you know, income, you don't have other sources of income. And when I say that, I guess I'm thinking of kind of two different categories. So all of us probably have a second income. Some of us are working and that's our second income. Some of us are on other forms of income support. And so I guess what I'm saying is, if for those who may feel led to raise support so that they can devote more of their time and energy to ministry, so those who are having to work a second job, you know, those are the people that I'm relating to. And of course, it's up to each one of you who are in that situation, whether or not the Lord is leading you to cut down hours or, you know, at some point step away from your second job. So that's totally between you and Jesus. But for those who have other types of income, I think those would be the ones that I would say give preference to those who, you know, don't have those other kinds of income. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. James?
It's amazing that you bring this up today, because I've been feeling and urging, because I've heard accidentally, you know, a couple of names that were already on my radar being suggested, and I do have outside income, you know, through Social Security. My motivation first is to, you know, give them an opportunity to give and invest in the kingdom. But the truth being told, dire need is really not there. So I have two more people on my radar that are associated with the community that could be kind of like cross-checked. But after that, I'm going to be looking to, after this is over, to limit those to people that are outside of the community. Because,
Leave AK at Safeway alone.
yes,
She's mine.
Okay.
and, well, you mentioned a name that, you personally mentioned a name that was already on my radar, and when you said it, I said, you know what?
AK is mine.
Yeah. But for me, I know we have a couple of people that are expressing this is the only thing they want.
That's it, I'm gonna throw it downstairs.
Like Crystal mentioned, a really great lead.
So, yeah,
Robbie Bird is really good.
so I think that through other contexts that we have, past churches, people that we have any kind of association with from a previous church, new connections that the Lord might lead us to, or referrals that again help us to stretch out beyond our immediate community. I would just be excited for us to look into those kinds of options, as opposed to, the worst thing I think would be us competing for, support from people within the church.
That caused a lot of confusion.
So,
God is not the author of confusion.
so I guess, James, I'll just be bold and say my recommendation for you would be, since you do already have a couple of supporters from within the church, I would just encourage you to pray about not approaching, and I understand all of those, you didn't approach them, they approached you, or at least some of them. But I would encourage you to pray about not approaching anyone else from within the community, and just taking up the challenge to stretch out beyond that for the rest of the support. But that's not a
Demand.
it's not a demand, it's just a suggestion. I think you can understand the reason for that.
And I can see that. And do I have directly or indirectly permission to write those names down and pass them along?
I don't know that you need to, but yeah, just pray about it and do whatever Jesus says. I mean, I think our
Yeah.
church is small enough that
And everybody knows everybody.
everybody knows everybody, and it's interesting too that for
I feel
It
good
just-
about what you just told me.
it just happens to be that the guys are the ones who have other sources of income, and it's the ladies who are out there working, so I mean, I think even not just because of that, but even as a matter of chivalry.
Hey,
You
I
know?
like chivalry.
So, yeah, just let's leave room for the ladies to get some support from within the community, and again, that's just a suggestion, so.
Well, I received your suggestion, and because I know you have always had my best interest in heart, and you have the best interest of the group that is doing support raising, I will defer to your good judgment and act accordingly.
And I'm just excited about, the opportunities, again, outside of the community, for enough for each one of us individually and beyond. So I know that in the past, I raised support until I was fully funded, and then there was lots of people on my list that I never contacted. In this case, I'm feeling a little bit more challenged to go beyond that and fundraise not just for my own personal support, but for the school,
Right.
so just sharing, that's kind of what I'm inspired to do, keep me in prayer with that, because, it's mostly an issue of time at that point. But like we've been saying, I know I, for one, am in it for the long haul. And so even if I don't get to them right away, I think it would be good for me to just commit myself to continuing to reach out to people until, I've done due
What is
diligence.
this for?
Those are the names that I'm passing on that were on my radar. Is that not gonna work?
Well, Alexis and Brenner, I already have an appointment with.
Cool. I've been a part of a couple of churches before Open Door. And so, he was talking about multiple home churches, and obviously to a significant extent, Open Door Fellowship is my home church. But I've also have other churches that I was a part of previously. And so those are the ones that I'm going to try to gear up for. For some reason, it feels more intimidating to approach a church than an individual. But like I said, I think it's something that I feel somewhat obligated to do, just for the sake of the ministry that God's called us to, and just being diligent to seek out any possible way to support that, especially for the long-term vision that God has for this ministry. So, well, any specific thoughts or questions about this chapter related to approaching churches, institutions for support? Let me ask you this, is anyone else have any other churches in mind that you would consider approaching? So this is, good information for that. And I would encourage you to
Yeah.
be willing to do that.
There are a couple people that are in leadership that are still at my church that I was going to right before I came.
So both for those past connections, I would say both the church as an institution as well as the individuals from that church would be great places to.
Set up an appointment with that senior pastor because he controls the missions budget. He's very much hands-on.
And then individuals that from that church would also be good to approach.
This is going to reshape my fundraising week or support raising week.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Yeah,
Love it.
that's good, I think.
That's good.
No. Like when I went to Montreal, I give me too much diarrhea.
Any churches that you guys are considering
No, I
approaching?
went to New Hope and they are money hungry.
Mhm.
Are you talking Ray Chavez Church?
Yep.
Oh,
Me and Bernie, after I left Joy House, it was kind of crazy because me and Bernie ended up like blocks from each other and she was the director of I forgot the name of the program was.
Hope House.
Yeah. And her and I she was crazy that we were both going to there. But the pastor for his birthday asked for $30,000 for a birthday present, so and my heart just didn't feel a lot of things, money wise. I wanted to put in the offering and have faith that God will provide, but I went there for a while. Spiritually, man, that place is on fire. But they are highly directed financially.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, it's that, you know, it happens.
Yeah.
And judge not, you should be judged,
Mhm.
you know,
Yes, be careful what you say.
you know? It's a
It's like
powerful church, it is.
I almost spoke against a leader this morning and boy, I just pulled my tongue out of my mouth. Just about before I did it.
It's a powerful church.
Yeah, Ray Chavez has got her